Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. We have a very special guest with us today, Juliet Lever. Juliet is the best-selling author of the book Relaunch My Life. She's also host of the top-rated podcast, Relaunch My Life Radio, as well as being a keynote motivational speaker and personal development trainer. Juliet was named a self-help guide by Thrive Global and Medium. And her mission is to inspire others to find the courage and confidence and to follow their true purpose in life, which we'll talk today about. She is a qualified NLP trainer, yoga teacher, heart math resiliency coach, and Reiki master with an extensive corporate background. Juliet believes in balancing the practical with the spiritual to find balance and peace, and with a deep commitment to empower others to become the best version of themselves. She believes that change is possible for everyone and that each of us is born for a reason. Welcome, Juliet.
Thank you so much, Spurred. I'm excited to have this chat with you today.
So am I. And on a personal note, we met, I'm just letting the listeners know that I got to meet you at an NLP trainers training, I believe, yes?
Yes.
Several years ago. We got to be in the same group and hang out quite a bit. And that was a transformational, about 3-week experience that we got to spend together and helped many people in the group to relaunch their life as a result of that. So I'm so grateful and excited that you are here to speak with our listeners about how to do that for themselves, how to find their passion and create the new version of themselves, if you will, something that they deeply desire. So would you be willing to start us off today with a little bit about how you got started in this world that you are in right now?
Definitely. Yeah. The story, every time I tell it, it still feels so surreal because I'm literally living the life that I dreamed of. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but that's why I'm so passionate about being that light to help people realize that you can create a life that you love and you can create a life that feels like a retreat rather than having to go on a holiday or a retreat, an escape from your life. So if you had met me, this is going back nearly 8 years now, I would have just been a very different version of myself that I was displaying to the world. I had really created a life that looked great on the outside, but on the inside, I was experiencing daily anxiety. I had very low self-worth and self-esteem. I was working in a corporate role, earning great money. I was married, all kind of ticked all of the societal boxes, but inside I was really not okay. And I coped with that through, I kind of joke in my book, Relaunch My Life, that I was an alcoholic, chocoholic, and workaholic, and those were my vices. And that was really the world that I lived in. And it seemed okay because that's what everyone else was doing. And so I didn't really understand why I wasn't happy. And I think what so many of us have, I had a few turning point moments. And one of the biggest factors for me was I was actually on a corporate work trip. I was on the back of a sailing boat, of all things. It was like a reward trip from a marketing company. And I was asked a question by someone that I had just met. I was asked, Juliet, what do you do outside of work for fun? And the moment this stranger asked me this question, my stomach churned, because if I was going to be honest with him, I was going to blurt out something like, oh, well, I get blind drunk on weekends. I drink a whole bottle of wine on the weeknights. I work all the time to avoid my husband, and I have no passion, and I'm 27 and I ask myself every single day, is this it? Like, that is literally the question I would go to bed every night asking as my head hit the pillow. I was like, am I never going to have a passionate relationship? Am I always going to feel stressed out and anxious? And it seemed like, it just seemed like I was doing all the right things. Why wasn't I happy? And so that sent me on such a profound personal healing journey of finding the questions. And I think sometimes, like, the more stuck we feel, the better our outcome can be. So it's the best reframe I've had for it now on the other side of it, where I think the beauty of hindsight can really help us. But I started getting really curious about, of course, how to heal anxiety. And I was drawn towards meditation, which about 8 years ago wasn't as mainstream and popular. I was drawn towards some really basic fundamentals fundamental things like journaling and noticing my thoughts. And that was really the first time that I observed the power of what I was saying and thinking was influencing how I was feeling. I remember the first journal entry that I kept for a week. I would journal every single day for a week. At the end of the week, I read back through all my journal entries and I had counted the word overwhelmed 20 times. And I remember having this like light bulb moment of, I wonder if that's why I feel anxious. I wonder if that's why I have anxiety. And so I wrote down a big list of everything I was feeling overwhelmed about and completely like changed all of the things on that list. And the next week in my journal, I didn't write the word overwhelmed once. And I felt so empowered. I think when we have these moments of insight and realization about our lives and the fact that we can influence and change the way we think and feel, and then we start to get results from that, then everything starts to shift. So the more that I kind of took responsibility for my own life and doing a lot more outside of work than just drinking and distracting, that's really where my values started to shift as well, more towards health and wellness. And the more that I found myself, the more that I lost my marriage and my connection, and the more that I lost my passion for doing a job just to get money. It wasn't enough anymore. And this real desire was born within me to make a bigger difference in the world and to do this thing called life coaching, which I had started hearing about. And everyone thought I was absolutely bonkers. They were like, you're going to quit a really good paying job to do what? No one makes money being a coach. What are you talking about? And yet I had this knowing. And I don't know if you or your listeners have ever had this feeling where it's just a knowing, and it doesn't even have to make logical sense, but that belief, that desire, that fire inside of you, that's your ticket to success and purpose and fulfillment. And I think the more connection we have to ourselves, the easier it is to find that knowing and then follow that knowing. And so, now, 8 years later, oh my gosh, I've met my soulmate and now partner in business and life. And we have an education company, Evolve and Relaunch Education, where we have just the most epic humans who also want to make a difference in their lives. And we now train and teach NLP and hypnotherapy. I also run book writing courses once a year and help people write their books, because the Juliet 8 years ago, if I'd told her that she was going to write a book, would have just shut down in disbelief and doubt and fear and procrastination. So I think it's such a blessing to be living and breathing and walking this life that feels good from the inside out versus where I was 8 years ago.
What a story. And I imagine many of the people listening might be in that place now where you were 8 years ago. Not feeling passionate in their marriage or relationship, not loving their job, maybe even hating their job, maybe, having some health challenges and really wanting to relaunch a new version of their life, which requires to launch a new version of themselves, which requires, as you said, for them to get to know who they are. And I love that question that you were asked, like, what do you do for fun? Because one of the things that I hear often from people is that they work a lot, they don't play enough, they don't get to have fun, they don't even know what is fun. They don't even know what's fun for them anymore. So how can they start, those individuals that are in that low place now? What can you advise for them to do as a starting point?
That's a really great question. And I think wherever you are, like, that's where you are, and it's perfect. I think our perception on things, as we've talked about at times, it can really influence how we're experiencing our reality. So starting to become aware definitely of your self-talk and what you're saying to yourself, because if you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm not having any fun, or I'm stuck, or I'm stressed, or like, that is going to be a program that is running, that is going to create a life where you don't feel great from the inside out. So I think it always starts with our thoughts and with what we're focusing on. And if we're focusing on the things that we can influence and change, or if we're focusing on all the things that we can't. So I think the first thing, I'm a huge advocate of either journaling, but some people don't like the pen to paper writing. So if not, you can do some auditory journaling if you're more auditory. And so in that, I recommend speaking out loud to yourself. The car is the best way I can suggest for you to do that, and have a conversation with yourself. And this is something that I tell a lot of people to do, is when you're in the car on your own, turn the radio off, turn the podcast off, stop cramming more information in your mind. You don't need more information. You probably need more presence and more awareness of what is going on inside your own world, and space and time to process your unconscious and what's actually going on. And my suggestion is to, at the end of this podcast, turn off the podcast, is to say to yourself, hi, Vered, or hi, Juliet, how are you today? And be real with yourself. Oh, you know what? I'm feeling this, or I'm pretty good. I'm doing this. And have a kind of conversation with yourself that's real, that is potently, what's going well, what's not going well, what do you need to focus more time on, what do you need to focus less time on. Like, start to have this conversation. But in a journaling prompt, you can also do that as well, so that you start to become authentic with yourself. And I think that's the first step. I don't think you can really do anything if you're not being honest with yourself. And that was the biggest turning point, is having that real conversation and being okay with saying, I'm not doing okay. And here are some things that I can start to do to shift out of it. So that would be my first thing, is to start getting more aware. And with that comes that attitude of curiosity. Get really curious, like, oh, okay, this is interesting. If I'm not feeling good, what could the gift in this be? And what could this actually be directing me towards? And so get really curious about it. And rather than label things as like good or bad, it's just getting really curious with what is, because things aren't inherently good or bad. We have a perception and we will label it as good or bad, and then that will cause us to feel a certain way. But if you can just get really curious and stay as kind of neutral with whatever is coming up, then you can receive it rather than react to it. So that would be my first thing. And I guess the other thing I would say is, I'm not sure if we setting ourselves up to win if we're seeking a life that is one-sided. So what I mean by that is a life that is always exciting, or always fun, or always feeling fulfilled. We're going to have these lives that have these highs and lows. And the more we can be like, oh, this is happening, cool. Oh, that's happening, cool. And not be as reactive. I'm not sure if you recall, but I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat earlier this year. And that is one of the biggest takeaways that I took from it, is really, whatever is happening, observing it and just going, okay, that's what's happening. The only constant in life is change. And so if you're going through those ups and downs, that's good. And negative emotions and the things that we're experiencing, they're useful as a compass to guide us to where we actually perhaps want to end up. So there's so many things, and it really depends where you are. So I think the first step I would say is get real with where you are.
Thank you for that. And it is something that, we can all do, is really just be more authentic, more real with where we are. What if, when we do that, for some of us, there's so much pain that it's so hard even just to verbalize or to put down on paper, and it gets us down and down and down. Like, what do we do in that case? When let's say we become conscious of the fact that we feel really ashamed, or that we feel not good enough, or that we're jealous of, or whatever it is, and then immediately we think, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that, I shouldn't be feeling that, something is wrong with me, right? All of those kind of limiting thoughts. What can we do as we're sitting in the car simmering in those thoughts?
When you hear yourself saying things out loud, or you write things, it gives you that observational capacity to also challenge and question it. And then also flip, okay, well, if I'm feeling ashamed about this, where am I actually feeling, proud, and where am I actually doing well? Because again, like, we have all experiences in life, and the moment we're conscious of what is bad about something, we're unconscious of what is good about something. And so there are two sides, not two sides, there is a myriad of sides to all sorts of situations. So I think, we're not able to consciously absorb all of the information that we're receiving around us in the world. So I think if you can give yourself that space, and if you become aware of the fact that you feel ashamed, definitely start to just be really kind and present with yourself as the first key. And the best reframe that we suggest to our students in our trainings, when there's one of those painful or scary kind of emotions come up that we've maybe had a pattern of running away from, the best thing to do is to be present with it and say to yourself, this is so good, this is coming up for me right now. Because maybe that thing not coming up has been blocking you from being able to get where you need to go. So whatever surfaces, whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion, we chase the good emotions, but that means we're running away from the bad ones, and eventually they catch up to us, right? So if you can be with them, and we kind of make a little bit of a joke because I think it's good to be lighthearted with our healing journeys. But one of the things we talk about is it's kind of like when you're a child and you would go to sleep at night and you might see a shape come out of your closet, the closet monsters. Those negative emotions are kind of like that. When you shine a light on them, you see them for the illusion they are. But the more we fear them, the more we're actually giving them energy, and the more it's actually holding back our lives and our ability to function. So I encourage you to, whatever comes up, work with a coach if it's too confronting to do it on your own. And there are some phenomenal people that you can definitely work with. But know that at the core, they are an illusion, and they are only keeping you stuck when you give them your power. So that would be my best advice. I think the more that you do this kind of work, Vera, you'll probably appreciate that blanket generalizational advice is really challenging, because I could pretty much answer it depends to everything, because it depends on the client, it depends on their situation, it depends on where they're at. But as a general thing, I think, giving your power towards what is useful versus giving your power to what is unuseful.
And I think that what you've suggested is brilliant, because I agree with you that we need to see what our experiences are, to accept our experiences. And as you said, to be very kind and very compassionate with ourselves as we're doing that. Because we really do need to see, right, as you said, to shine a light before we can transmute, if you will, or shift any of those energies. So I think what you're suggesting as a starting point is very, very wise.
Well, and I think it's important because a lot of the personal development industry does sort of encourage running away from or fixing or healing what are called negative emotions. And yes, it's important to shift and clear anything that is repressed and stored, and creating our, helping us filter for more of that in our lives. But also there's a usefulness, so if you're feeling uninspired in your work, or if you're feeling like you're reactive and you get angry when you get home after a long day, that's powerful feedback for you. For a personal example, my partner Paul and I, the only time we generally have an argument or a disagreement is, one, if we're hungry, but two, if we actually both need our own personal space. And so that creates that magnetic polarity, that because we're like best friends and we work and live together and we just want to hang out all the time, sometimes we actually need that forced polarity. So the negative emotions, even though they seem like they're unuseful, and even limiting beliefs, the benefit to having a belief that you're not good enough. Some of the most successful people I have met and even interviewed, they have a deep underlying belief that they're not good enough, and that pushes them to succeed and be better and do more and research and do all the things. And so I'm not saying that's a bad belief. Is it useful? And sometimes we get to a point in our life where the beliefs and the emotions we have, they're no longer useful. We've kind of outgrown them, but we're still trying to fit into the overalls that we put on when we were 5 years old. And so I think that's important. Is this serving me? Is this useful? And is this getting me closer to where I want to be? And that's why I'm really passionate about helping people relaunch, not only like, it's not just their life in general, but relaunch like different areas, because every day we're born again, and we have this capacity to see life from a new lens and a new perspective. Like, you're not the same person you were yesterday. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And I think where I was 8 years ago, I was so stuck in that routine, that hamster wheel, that it's really easy to miss the newness of this moment here right now, and that we're creating this moment in this moment. And so for your listeners, if they're not feeling that same form of excitement, or they're feeling like, oh, I'm married to my job, or something like that, be authentic and be real about that, because that's the only way something is going to change. And so that's where getting curious with, well, what are my beliefs about work? And a lot of people have that belief that you have to work hard to make good money, or to work means to work 24/7, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that is something that, in being my own boss, and I'm sure you appreciate too, it was a bit of a transition from working for someone else to working to yourself. When is enough when you're working in your own business? And to start to challenge that, and is it useful? And I'm not sure about you, but for me, when we're not teaching a course, I actually work best when I'm working 3 to 4 days a week, and I have a whole day off for training and study, and a whole day off just for me, and then weekends, So, and if someone had told me that that was possible, it wouldn't fit in my belief structure. So getting curious about, what are your beliefs about business? What are your beliefs about work-life balance? What are your beliefs about all sorts of things? Because if you can start to question them, then you can start to create a new reality.
And what if they don't know what that new reality is for them? What might you suggest to help them progress a little bit?
That's a great question. And I think that one of the words that you used is probably a key factor in why people don't know, is what is the right path? And so who determines that? And sometimes wanting to get it right means that it's impossible for us to take that step, right? So I'm just being picky because we're language ninjas here. But one of my favorite kind of visual metaphors, I'm very visual with my rep system. So one of my favorite visual metaphors is in life, right? When we're wanting to create a change, imagine, I'm not sure if you call them, like in a jungle gym in America, we have something called monkey bars. Do you have those? Is that what they're called there?
I think so, yes.
So when you're a kid, right, and you jump on the monkey bars, you're standing there and you've got one hand behind you, one hand in front of you, right? If you have both hands on the same monkey bar and you're just stuck and you're staying in the same spot, are you going to go anywhere in life? Are you going to have any change? Is anything going to shift? No. So if we want to change, we've got to move forward. But for a lot of people, they're not willing to let go of that rung behind them in order to move forward. But also when you move forward, there's that time where you don't exactly have your hand on the bar in front of you, right? So you've got that free fall. And that's what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of pushing people to let go of that hand and trust that when you are in the free fall, the momentum of letting go of where you were will help you to get to where you are. But if you're just staying here and going, oh, well, I don't know where to go, nothing's going to change. So what I'm a big fan of is removing like fears, doubts, focusing on what can go wrong. Of course, we need confidence and competence. We need to have some form of skill set. But one of the things that was really detrimental before I quit my corporate job was me thinking that I didn't have any transferable skills. And I think if you've been working in a workplace or if you've had your own business for a really long time, it's very easy to think that your experience is only applicable to what you're doing. But we're not just talking about career, we're talking about any change, So I think, we need to have a somewhat of a path of where we're going, but not to the finite detail that I think a lot of people want to have, because sometimes it's not until you're further down the road that you even realize that there is something, a different opportunity, or there is something out here that you didn't even know existed. So I think, if I had ever quit my job and thought, oh, well, I want to be an NLP trainer and I want to write books, I wouldn't have started because I wouldn't have believed it. But starting off with like, oh, I'd love to just coach people. And I started off on the weekend and then it grew. And then, it's one step at a time. And I think that Martin Luther King quote, faith is taking the first step without seeing the entire staircase. And I think that's so important. So you don't have to get it right, because what is right anyway? And sometimes like trying to be right will get in the way of us actually having that life of fulfillment and that life of purpose as well. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because people can get really stuck in even being really fixed and rigid thinking can really keep us stuck. Too much chaos and too much rigidity, they're problems on either end of the spectrum, right? So if we can have a bit of a structure, but a bit of, give ourselves a little bit of that, okay, leap, trust, then we can move forward, depending on what context that means for your listeners. So one of the things that I talk about in my book, I've got some activities in my book to help people to navigate, how to find what they're wanting to do in which area of life that they're wanting to relaunch. One of the things I talk about is what I call my 5 keys to fulfillment, and the different kind of areas that you want to look at if you really want to become fulfilled in life or in that specific area. The reason that I put these together is through my own journey and also working with hundreds of clients over the years. I found that there were these like key fundamental things that if we actually tick these like off and explored them and went through them, we can actually map out and create a life that feels really fulfilling for ourselves. Now, fulfillment as a goal, fulfillment is a state, it's an emotion, right? So we can actually feel that right now. So in terms of making fulfillment a goal, I would say it's a process, and there'll be times when you feel fulfilled and there'll be times when you feel really challenged, which can also be fulfilling depending on your perception of it. So the first one, and I think like the most fundamental key for us, if we're going to be doing anything, number one is our vitality. So all of the keys start with a V, and the vitality is really our energy that we're bringing to every single situation. So the vitality is not only vitality in terms of our physical body, but our thoughts as well and our emotions. So what is our mental, emotional health and our vitality? Because we're going to approach life and situations with a very different energy depending on that, all of those factors. So if your listeners were listening right now, and if they were to give themselves even just a score out of 10 for their vitality, not just their physical health, but their mental, emotional health, and even spiritual, what that would be for them. And then taking some time to reflect on what are some of the things that can help to increase that, to lift that. Because whether it's in our intimate relationships, in our fitness regime, whether it's in our workplace, if our vitality is like less than a 5 out of 10, we're going to get really different results than if we're bringing our best version of ourselves into every single situation. So that is like the first and foremost, because you can have all the success in the world, but if your vitality is low, then you're not going to appreciate it and you're probably not going to feel great anyway. So that's the first one. The second one is the really fun one. It's around this idea of victories. So the reason it's around victories is it relates to our self-esteem and building ourselves up before we take that leap on the monkey bars. So if we're wanting to move forward, we need to take time to reflect on what are the wins that we've had in our life and how can they actually give me strength, and how can I use the knowledge and the things that I did from those experiences to help propel me forward into where I'm wanting to go. And a lot of the time we filter for what's wrong. It's a protection mechanism that we have built into us, right? So if we can actually filter for what we've done well in the past, that can help us to generalize, well, if I've done that, then I can do this next thing. So the second one is like really taking some time for your victories. And it's not actually often. I remember when I used to run retreats over in Bali, this was one of the first activities I would get the groups of women to do. I'd get them to sit with a stranger and just share with them their biggest achievements in their life up till now. And women who had only just met, in 5 minutes, they'd be in tears and they would think the woman sitting in front of them was like a goddess because of all the things that they had done, but they'd never really had that space to just have someone listen and see them in all their potential. So it's important to do that for ourselves, because so often we will have activated in our memory the time that we made a fool of ourselves, or the time that we started a business and it didn't work. And if that is the perception and the perspective that we are approaching our future life with, we're going to carry yesterday's results into tomorrow's results. So it's really important to boost that. Good. The third key to fulfillment was variety. Actually having not only variety in our life, but having a variety of abilities to like a variety of perspectives on how to handle something. Because a lot of the times we will be very linear. We will think, oh, okay, well, I'm here and this is the only way that I can do this. But there are hundreds of different opportunities and solutions and choices and things that we can actually look at. And sometimes we get very fixed into, oh, well, if I want to do this, then I need this piece of paper. Or if I want to do that, then I have to do it this way. So variety is not just about having a variety of ways to approach situations and different ways of thinking. Like, we need to expand our thoughts and our perceptions, but also having a variety of beliefs and people that we can interact with. We're really living in a world where people are only associating with people like them and people that they know. And we're actually becoming a lot more insular and a lot more reductionist, right? So variety is about, I believe that everyone is obviously filtering reality from their own beliefs. And I can understand and appreciate all of the perspectives in this world, because if you had lived in that person that you're disagreeing's life and had their beliefs, their programming, their experiences, you would be acting and thinking and feeling exactly like they are right now. But because we have this beautiful subjective experience of life, we can only really understand it from ourselves. So if you can expand and have more variety, you can think about how we're all bringing our own pieces of the jigsaw puzzle into this collective world. That can really help you as well to have variety of experiences in your life. And the more variety of experiences and conversations that you can have, the more you're going to expand to what's possible, because maybe you've only been looking in one kind of corner of the world. And that's why you can't find what is really your purpose or what makes you fulfilled. But if you expand and give yourself that curious permission, then you can start to have a variety of experiences that's going to open you up. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, oh, I didn't even know this existed, and now this is the thing that I'm so, interested in, passionate about. And I think, it's there's a lot to this. So anyway, I'm going to go through as much as I can, and people can grab my book if they want to go through a bit more in the activities. The fourth key to fulfillment, and as we're getting higher on the kind of pyramid, the hierarchy, we have value. And value is not just about your self-worth, but it is about valuing yourself, understanding your values, and also valuing your time and your resources. So we all have 1,440 minutes every day. And so many people are not valuing that time. They're doing low priority tasks, or they're doing things that do not align with their values. And so they feel drained and tired and depleted. If you're living a life that is in alignment with your values, you're going to feel buzzing every day. You're going to have like this well of energy. And people will say, oh, you don't drink coffee. Why do you have so much energy? And it's literally because, well, I'm doing what I'm born to do, and I'm living a life that is important and aligned with my values. So everyone has different values. And I'm sure you've probably spoken with people about this, and in your trainings, you talk a lot about values, because values are like what is most important to us. So they're super important. But one of the most powerful activities that I could definitely recommend for your listeners to do is, if there is something that they're feeling like they're not as motivated to do, understanding your values and actually linking your values to that particular thing can help you to feel more intrinsically motivated towards it. So even if you just think about, okay, well, my top value is, I'll just go for it, right? My top value is making a difference in the world, right? And so making a difference. And so running this podcast is a way of me making a difference. And I feel obviously really motivated to be here. But if I think about stacking the dishwasher, okay, let's think about that. Stacking the dishwasher. How does that help me make a difference in the world? Well, it makes our house run smoother. It helps me make a difference with my partner and in our life. And it helps me to have quiet time for myself, where I can think about, ideas in my business. You can start to link any activity that you would perceive is a low motivation factor, and you can start to actually feel more connected to it and more unconsciously connected to it. And so this is really interesting, and you could do probably a whole 5-day workshop on values, which is in our master practitioner training. We spend about 4 days diving into personal values and deconstructing them, and also understanding if you have conflicts of values, because a lot of indecision and a lot of procrastination and a lot of self-sabotage, if you want to call it that, can come down to a conflict in values as well. So if, say, your top 2 values are family and business, sometimes people can think that they're competing. But if you can do some alignment work and actually understand how what you're doing is supporting both of those things, then you'll feel a lot more congruent, and you'll actually have a lot more energy for what you're doing as well. And you won't maybe feel like you're married to your job. You might have a different perception. So it can really shift our perception, but also the underlying energy that we have around it. So values are super, super important. And yeah, if your listeners haven't explored it, I would definitely recommend looking more into your values, and if they are in alignment, or if there is some incongruence that is coming up around that as well. And then our 5th key to fulfillment, on top of the pyramid, on top of all of it, is to have a vision. So we need to have a vision to have self-direction, and that is sometimes going to start off just like on the monkey bars. Sometimes that vision it's not going to be as clear as what we would want it to let go and take that leap. And so we want to be constantly coming back to our vision. And so, this is something on a personal and professional perspective. Paul, my partner, and I, we have a weekly meeting and we reconnect in with our vision. We have a monthly meeting and we review how we're going in alignment with that. And I think it's so important to have those touch points. And whether you're a business leader on your own in business or you've got a team, reconnecting to your personal vision and also connecting how your personal vision connects in with your business vision is going to help you to feel way more motivated. And you might not, I think there's this idea of, well, if we relaunch our lives, we have to throw everything away and start again. But sometimes relaunching your life is actually doing this alignment work and realizing my life is actually amazing. I was just looking at it in a really different way, or there's just these few key things that need to shift, or something completely different. Actually, I just need to relaunch my vitality and my well-being. So there's so much to this, and there's a lot of activities in the book as well that I definitely encourage people to get a copy. It's on Kindle, Audible, and also Amazon. But yeah, there's just so much to it. And obviously more than what I can delve into, but I've tried to give like a crash course into it in this interview.
Well, you've done a fabulous job in giving us these 5 keys, because I think a lot of people, are in that place in the monkey bars of being either completely paralyzed or not having the vitality, the energy, the resiliency to leap, if you will, to let go. And the question I have for you is, what about those individuals that there's a lot at stake? So for them to relaunch, let's say, their career, it means letting go of an income, potentially, or it means, let's say, selling your company or whatever that might be for them. And maybe they have a family, maybe they have other things that might not be aligned with making a decision like that. What do you say to those individuals to help them, you know, take the next step, if you will, towards a more fulfilling life?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is, in my experience and over the last 7 years of doing this kind of work now, there is nothing more profitable than a business that you are passionate about. And there is nothing more draining than showing up and doing something every day that you're not lit up by anymore. So you're doing your family a gift, you're doing your staff a gift. I think there's so much in that question, and there's obviously a lot of things to consider, but the first few things are definitely building up a buffer zone so that your expenses are covered, so you've got that beautiful grace period while you're taking that leap, and also making sure that you're not just letting go of what you've had. So is there someone that could take your role over? Is there someone that could help to still manage it while you're still running the business rather than get rid of it altogether? Those sorts of things. I think communication is really important, even sharing, okay, this is where I'm feeling. In my experience, and I'm going to get a little bit woo-woo here because I don't yet know how it works, but I trust that it does. In my experience, when a human is in alignment and they make a decision to follow what's true for them, the strangest people show up to support. The strangest things happen. We had a situation about a year ago where we had lost a PA that was working for us, like an executive assistant that was working for us. And we made the not so great decision to just kind of like do what she had been doing ourselves. And we thought that would be okay. And a couple of months later, Paul and I were just we were both like, what is going on? We're hating this. We're doing way too many low priority tasks here, right? And then literally one of our students in our community put a New Year's resolution, kind of tell me your top 3 goals for 2021. And I reshared it and I put in there, hire a rockstar PA. And she wrote back within 2 seconds and said, I'm a rockstar PA. I'd love to work for you guys. And we ended up hiring her about a week later. And it was literally just me calling it out and saying, this is what we want. So I think when you're in alignment and you say, actually, this isn't what I want to do anymore, what would it look like? What would it feel like to have someone come in and do these things? Or what else is possible? And that's where that key to fulfillment of variety, so often we think, oh, well, if I do this, then I'm not going to have as much money. Well, what if you did that and you had more money? asking yourself those questions that expand versus what we can kind of get societally conditioned into doing, which is those fear-based questions of, oh, if I do that, and then we contract. So asking yourself, expanding questions will expand what's possible. It will expand your belief structure as well. So I hear you. I think, any brave decisions, you're going to need to make those brave calls. And I can remember when I quit my corporate job and I went full-time in my business, there was this little bit that was like, is this the right thing? But that inner knowing was just so strong. So I think probably don't do anything until you have a really strong relationship with yourself and your inner knowing, because that's your compass. And then I've got my back. I'm also a really big fan of having no plan B. I've seen a lot of businesses fail because people had comfort zone jobs, salaries, a partner's income to fall back on, and then their business is just kind of so. But for me, in my first year of business, that was it. If it didn't succeed, there was no plan B, because I didn't want to go and work for someone ever again. Like, I wanted to work for myself. So I think that whole idea of like burning the boats, it is really powerful. It can seem irresponsible depending on your perception, but in my experience, it's a great way to create a business that must succeed, if that's what you're wanting to do. So yeah, I think even standing up for what matters in terms of the first key, vitality, even one of the things that I talk about in my book is the Relaunch My Life routine. And it's a morning routine that is the first hour of the morning, half an hour of movement, whatever you intuitively feel like you need to do on that day. So it might be just a gentle walk, or it might be some stretching, or it might be pumping it out at the gym, whatever you need. 20 minutes of meditation, whatever form you need on the day, and 10 minutes of journaling. And a lot of business people say, oh, I don't have an hour. You can also reduce it down to half an hour. So it's like 15 minutes movement, 10 minutes meditation, 5 minutes journaling if you want a power session. But protecting that time fiercely, that was a game changer for me, because I used to be like, oh no, I'll just reply to these emails first things in the morning. And if you can actually say, no, this is what I need to be in truth and in alignment with myself, then the world will bend around that, versus this sort of outside in way of going, oh, well, what is everything else and everyone else wanting or doing, and then melding ourselves to that. If you can have that strong center, then things will start to shift around you. So I think, trust, if you're in alignment and if you're doing something you really believe in, there will be people that will come to help you. And you don't see them yet because you haven't kind of taken that leap and shown that you're serious about it. I think there's a big piece. We have a business mentorship that my partner and I run, and we have about 15 to 20 coaches that are in it, and it's a year-long program that we take people through, and we give them a lot of support and things for taking that leap from values level 4 to 5, from being an employee to an employer and having their own business. And there was one particular girl in this group who she just kept not being able to get clients because she was just always tired, because she was working in a disability support role, and her work was just so demanding of her. She didn't have anything left in the tank to start her coaching business. And so we put her on the hot seat, which is where all the coaches get to ask her questions in one of our intensives. And the whole group basically voted unanimously that she needed to burn the boats and just quit her job. And she only had 2 months in the tank in terms of saved income. She quit her job and literally attracted 5 clients in the next month that helped her. And she's now making 5-figure months consistently, and on her way to make 6 figures. And if she had stayed in that job, she just would not be able to have that energy and that vitality to do what she actually wanted. So everyone's unique, but sometimes I think we're letting fear run the show, and it's an illusion. And I think when you pull open the closet and you see the illusion for what it is, you can realize, well, I'm the driver of my life, and I'm going to stop giving my power over to fear, and I'm going to start taking the steps that are true for me. And I think your family respect you when you do that. Your employees respect if it's true. But if you're making a new decision out of fear, then you're just jumping from one fry pan into the next. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm in 100% alignment with you. And I see that in my work as well. And, it kind of brings back this, there is no right path, if you will. Just focusing on that is stressful and brings resistance, right? Because what is right? It's more of like, what feels right to you? What feels true to you? What is aligned with your values? What fills up the vitality meter, if you will, so that you feel more alive. And when you follow that, then whatever that next monkey bar is, it's going to be in the right direction.
Mm. And I think you touch on a really important point, because saying to someone in business, oh, well, it has to feel in alignment, might sound like that is counterintuitive, or it's not business savvy. We need to think about things logically and plan. And I do believe, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, that the world is starting to have this beautiful shift where we have more of that balance between thinking and feeling, and we need to have a bit of both. But we have had, I would say, in the last 20 to 30 years, a big overemphasis on thinking, and that has got us to a certain point. And obviously, we don't want to go all the way just over to feeling and completely disregard sense and strategy. I think if you can have the two and they can be working together, and obviously we've both sort of studied with heart math, and we know the power of the heart and that innate wisdom and intelligence that we can connect to. That, I don't know about you, but it sometimes just seems so simple, that we live in this world that loves to overcomplicate and overthink. And what if it actually was really simple? And how would that feel? And what kind of choices and decisions can we make from that place? And of course, you're going to still have strategies and everything. But yeah, I'm definitely not saying just disregard all the sense and the strategy. You need to have a bit of both. But much less. I mean, overthinking just gets us to a certain point. And I think a lot of people are overthinking.
Well, I'm so deeply grateful that you've shared what you've shared with us today, Juliet, because I agree with you that we need that balance of mind and heart, and to have that courage, right? Also gut, yes, in terms of, the courage to take those leaps, even when we don't have all the clarity, we don't know the quote unquote right next or next step, or even what is most important to us right now, because it might be shifting. So it's about being very kind and compassionate and curious, as you said at the very beginning. So I'm so deeply appreciative of you sharing your wisdom with us. How can people learn more about how to get this amazing book, how to engage in all of your programs? I know you do a lot of stuff virtually. Where can they go?
Yeah, definitely. So my website is julietlever.com, and that's where you can get my book. You can find out about our trainings. I do run an annual book writing course as well. I'm just about to publish my second book, Author Rising, which is a companion book to help you write your own book and get out of all the mindset blocks that people have to writing their own book. Because a lot of people have little doubts and fears of, I'm not good enough to write a book, or all those things that come up. And I think that is unuseful. So yeah, that book is about to come out as well. I run online book writing retreats. We also run our NLP and hypnotherapy trainings online, as well as master practitioner online. And there's always new programs, courses. Paul and I are also planning some kind of specialized courses as well. So if you check out evolveandrelaunch.com.au, that is our education platform. And we also have a community of coaches on there that have trained with us, and lots of different resources and blogs and bits and pieces. So I'll send you all those links.
Oh, thank you, Juliet. Thank you for helping us to awaken to how we are feeling about our life, and to giving us that hope and those tools to help us move forward, get more clear, and build momentum and live our highest and best life. Thank you.
Thank you.